So if everything went according to plan, we should be live on China Tech. Although we're not live, we are doing a recording, so you guys will see this. Happy Thanksgiving if you see it after Thanksgiving, or I guess for those of you who celebrate it. For those of you who don't celebrate Thanksgiving, have a good weekend. I think that was the best way to recover from that. I'm Frostgreen, your host, LPL Shoutcaster. Joined on the desk with me, of course, is going to be Raz, our replacement for Heba. This is going to be his week 2, so we didn't fire him after week 1. He passed. He made it through the flames. Of course, you both know both. I'm speaking to as if there's only 2 viewers, which there probably only is. All 12 of you know Kelty Bozer and Drexenar, Esports Heaven editor-in-chief, as well as On Gamers and LOL Esports. So normally I have I have a list or a plan for how I want China Tech to go, and everything's laid out in the topics. I don't have a list for this one, so we're just gonna freeball it. We just yeah, I said it. We just finished the LPL Expansion tournament. Okay, so LPL, of course, expanding from 8 teams to 12. So every other region is expanding to 10 teams from 8, but LPL, obviously, 20 servers, huge region, vast number of population. It's even bigger than that. The 4 new teams joining are Gamti Feng Shui. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes. World Elite Academy. Energy Pacemaker, not Energy Pacemaker Carries, Energy Pacemaker, and Vici Gaming. So first and foremost, I want to get your guys' responses, as well as the background noise on Drexen's side.
I apologize for that. But yeah, okay, so I'll go ahead and talk about it. But yeah, sorry, it's a little crowded here today. But yeah, so my biggest surprise is just that Young Glory didn't qualify, and just because these guys
team knocked out too.
I know, I was really surprised by this because they seem to have the most meta knowledge out of any team that was near the bottom of the barrel in LPL. But from my knowledge, they also didn't work very hard. So that was a thing too. So a lot of people are actually pretty happy that they're out. But at the same time, it really sucks because they were the team that didn't really seem like the one-trick ponies that would make it in that could have potential. So in a way, it's kind of a surprise, but maybe a good thing overall. And I apologize for the screaming in the screen. So if someone else wants to talk, I'll go take care of that real quick.
Someone's getting murdered in the background.
Basically, yeah, go ahead.
Said that Drexen is killing people who said that World Elite isn't the most glorious team in League of Legends esports history.
I want to quickly set up the structure for the people who didn't watch the expansion tournament. So it was 8 teams in the tournament, best of 3, double elimination. 4 teams made it into the LPL. So you technically had a 50-50% chance of making or qualifying for the LPL. The teams competing. See if I can remember this. Top part of the bracket was Young Glory, Wings of Aurora, World Elite Academy, Gamti, DK, Energy Pacemaker Carries, and Vici Gaming. Yes? I got all 8?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. There's no list in front of me. It's all from memory. I've had 9 concussions in my
so proud of
lifetime.
you.
So this is amazing. Okay, so yeah, so out of all of those teams, everyone favored Young Glory. Young Glory gets knocked out. First team to leave. I believe the weaker side of the bracket was DK, Gamti,
World Elite Academy, Wings of Aurora.
Yeah.
And Wings of Aurora was the weaker side of the bracket, and then it was the 2 Energy Pacemakers, Vici Gaming, and Young Glory on the top side.
Yeah.
So let's now go hypothetically. If Young Glory had been on the other side of the bracket with World Elite Academy, would they have are we I want to ask you guys this question. Was the structure of the bracket, did that make it so teams that we might not have seen in the LPL qualify, or do you think that the teams who did qualify, because it was best of 3 double elimination, yes, Gamti, they deserve to be there with their stylish jackets?
For me, it's I kind of wonder. Well, no, for me, I just kind of wonder if their motivation to get back into the LPL was the same as their motivation in LPL, because apparently they didn't scrim that much when they were in LPL either. So it's really weird that they had the most team play with that little amount of dedication. So I mean, it might just be a matter of the teams they were facing, Young Glory's teams they were facing in LPL, maybe since it was the regular season, didn't commit as hard, and these teams trained really, really hard because they really wanted the LPL spots, and then so that hunger for those spots put them ahead of Young Glory. But yeah, I don't know if it would have made a difference, because just from the games I watched, Young Glory didn't really play all that spectacular either.
They played pretty awfully.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, and it was really sloppy even for their standards.
To be really fair, Energy Pacemaker, I think it was Carries, had a really good strategy against Young Glory, where they used the Twitch and they ganked Jian Gun 4 times in the first 5 minutes of the game. Like, I don't think they killed him. They may have killed him one time, but the fact that they, like, kept him down and kept the pressure on, I think was really intelligent.
I felt like Energy Pacemaker Carry's entire strategy was creating ridiculous pressure, including, like, finding the nearest bush and camping it out with a pink ward. That was probably one of the most entertaining games to watch were from Energy Pacemaker Carries. But yeah, it felt like the entire tournament structure was so random. Like, I tried my hardest to, like, I remember last time I came on the show, I was like, well, World Elite Academy, I'm not sure if they're going to come in, but Young Glory's like 100%. I was so certain they were going to make it. And then they completely separated World Elite Academy and the other group, which had DK, Wings Aurora, and GAN T Feng Shui. And all of those teams, I'm not going to say they're bad, but they're not up to par with World Elite Academy.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that was the easier side of the bracket for sure, just from watching.
And so, to be fair, though, okay, so I'm going to bring up Gamty, because I cast a majority of their games just of how, like, the caster situation works out. The first day, Gamty, to me, was completely unimpressive. I thought that they were very, I don't want to use the word, okay, I'm trying to think of, like, the best way to describe this team. If you took the EULCS and you just slowed it down by
oh god.
That's what Gamty reminded me of. And it's like, and I'm not trying to slam EC. I don't want people to be like, oh, this fucking bitch, EULCS. No, like the EULCS, like it's very methodical. Like, and there's that saying that when an EU team does something, they make sure that 100% they're going to be able to do it. Like the risk versus reward is as far as how the EU teams play. Unless you like Millennium or Rocat, because obviously those teams like went crazy nuts. But on majority, like they weigh risk versus reward like very differently than Chinese teams. I think we can all agree on that. But Gamty, it looks like they're playing a very methodical game, and for the most part they are. They only take objectives when they 100% know that it's going to happen. But the thing is, and the difference between like them and like a Korean play style or an EU play style is instead of exhibiting pressure to create mistakes, like a Korean team will put pressure on you until you mess up, and then as soon as you step out of line, they like slam you and like stab you and twist that knife. Like Gamty, they kind of wander around and they pause and they hover and they're like, is he gonna make a mistake? Did he make a mistake? Can we do something now? And like 45 minutes later, first blood happens. That said, that was the first day. The second day, they looked like a Korean team, like in a Chinese setting. Like obviously not like fucking Samsung White coming out the bushes and like ganking people, but like they looked really good. They caused mistakes to happen. They snowballed early. They actually gave better teams like a run for their money. And I was like, would this team be able to compete in the LPL if they were just consistently like this, as opposed to... Because I'm feeling like Gamty's problem is like one day they'll show up like the first day and another day they'll show up like the second day, as opposed to consistently being like a qualified team. Do you think this is an overarching issue to a lot of these LSPL teams, or... See what I'm saying? Did you follow?
No, yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm actually not entirely sure though, because a lot of LSPL teams are missing like a lot of like basic things that professional teams do, whereas Gamty seems like a team that's more like they can execute it, but they need more like high level games that like because it seems like they're doing everything right, but like you said, they're taking it really slow and like they're a little too cautious to approach. So like when you're a team that takes only like very calculated risks, you can calculate more and more when you're playing stronger and stronger opponents. So, I mean, granted, they had a lot of playtime against like teams near the top of LSPL or LPL. Sorry, yeah, it seemed like it's a team that would do really well in that kind of situation, just because they'd have like a broader field to like expand like what's worth the risk and what's not, rather than being like a little too safe or a little too slow. So, but
I think I will say for LSPL as a whole, I think consistency is one of the big issues that keeps like the good LSPL teams from being at the top and then making LPL, and the LSPL teams from just like kind of being in the middle. Because a lot of like talking about Vici Gaming's roster and their old roster, Vici Gaming S actually didn't even qualify for this tournament. Vici Gaming P did. Because even though when you see Vici Gaming play really, really well, they can qualify for LPL. Like, that's a thing that they just did. But when you saw Vici Gaming play poorly, then they just kind of sit around. And you can make the argument that they played, like, some of the split with Zune and some of the split with Cherish, who's their really good mid laner. Or you can make the argument that they played with Sins, and then they played with Bobo as their AD carry, and then 300 versus this guy was like the only major change. The only player that we didn't really see in LSPL at all was the new support player. But so you can make those arguments, but the thing is that most people would say that Zune and Bobo were the worst AD carry and mid laners, and those were the ones on the team that qualified, right? So it's just for Vici Gaming about consistency is the thing that kept them from being a top team and a mid-tier team. And I think that that's something that will keep a team like GAMT from being a bottom team or a mid-tier team in LPL, I think. That said, who's excited for Edward Gaming versus GAMT?
Oh god, that's gonna be some like WE versus CLGEU shit right there.
Hold on. I want to go a little bit deeper with this. So, because we're talking about consistency issues and how the LSPL teams that if they were consistently playing to like the height that we see them at, that they could be like really good teams. I mean, we said this about King, we said this about Snake, how we think there's going to be consistency issues that we still think they perform well, but consistency might hold them back from being, the best. So now here comes the question, the chicken or the egg question. Do you think that they are LSPL teams because of consistency, or do you think that LSPL creates inconsistency? Do you think it's a factor of their environment, or because these teams have it, they're not able to qualify for the LPL, or we didn't see the rise of these players sooner, or these teams sooner?
Okay, I'm willing to say both, but I feel like it's more the
That's
fact
such a
that...
cop-out, come on!
Okay, but I'm actually going to say that it's because the LSPL creates that inconsistency, because...
Why?
Of course,
why do you think it creates that?
Because...
It's informal. I guess, like
the way the games are structured, our teams will only face each other once,
Right.
and so of course you'll only face really like the top tier teams, like maybe 5 weeks, and the rest of the time you'll be facing bottom tier teams. So you'll have like Snake really just like any top tier team in the LSPL. We'll never really find that
quality of practice, because it's so much larger, that the quality of practice is thinner, whereas like if you have a condensed like solid 8 teams as opposed to 16 teams, and like 2 of them are really good and the rest of them are like shit. Okay, now here's the other part of this question. Now I'm going to push you even harder.
Okay.
It's been said that LSPL has a really good scrim environment.
Mm-hmm.
Because of like the relation of the teams and how the teams are set up. So, and like EDG apparently when they were preparing to like, come in and ass kick their way through LPL, they scrimmed a lot of LSPL teams because they liked that scrim culture. So this is, again, like we have 2 like really different things. Like if the scrim culture is so good in LSPL, then why can't the teams figure it out? Why do we have these problems?
It comes down to one big issue with consistency, and it's based on LSPL teams cannot close games. And they cannot close games because they play each other. And it feels like if you see how Snake plays their games, King can, I guess. Even King has problem closing games. But if you see how like Snake or just any top tier team, like right now EDGF is playing that the same way, or in my opinion, the same way that Snake has played, in which they're playing very snowballish comps because they can easily snowball games off of their skill, their raw skill.
You think they have to play snowball because if they played late game, they wouldn't be able to finish the game?
Not so far that they wouldn't, but I'm really questioning their ability to finish a game, or because even with their snowballish comps, they struggle to really play the map in a way that would just kind of like cleanly finish out these games. And so, of course, like the competition that they face, like when they get into the LSPL, like, or at least that Snake or like King faced, was like, well, they'd go up against Wings of Aurora, they'd go up against like KX Happy, and it's like these teams. I wouldn't say so far like I wouldn't say that Wings of Aurora was bad, but comparatively, it's just there's no match. And so I would say that they're good scrim partners in that like each laners, like all the laners are great, like mechanically they're really on point. And maybe their objective taking is perfectly fine, but it just comes down to how do they push down the map.
Is this a coaching issue, Ben?
I have no clue. Actually, I wouldn't be able to.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is just like an LSPL. If you're playing other LSPL teams as an LSPL team, it's more risk averse to try these snowball strategies because if that's what's working, then why would you switch to like a more like late game or more complicated style if that's not going to work against other LSPL teams? So it's kind of like a double edged sword because if you want to fight against better competition, you have to learn these kind of tactics, but at that point, it could also jeopardize your LSPL record. But that makes them good scrim partners because then LPL can still get practice against these really talented LSPL guys and learn how to prevent snowball in the early game. So it's like it kind of sucks for LSPL teams, and I think it stunts their growth like a little bit. But that would explain why LSPL teams remain with these bad habits, but that it's still essential practice for the LPL teams.
Yeah.
So,
Kelsey?
I
was going to ask you this question, though. We've identified now kind of like this overarching, like LSPL is like the snowball, like really aggressive, at least when they find success. In LPL, you know, it gives you the training for the late game, closing out. I mean, do you agree with these kind of overarching play styles that we've given the two competitive scenes in China?
I think I do agree with just the characteristic that LSPL teaches you how to create these snowballing compositions, and LPL teaches you how to late game team fight. I think is the big thing. It teaches you the Baron tactics in the late game team fight. But I want to say that the good thing for the LSPL format is that because they only face each other once, and this is actually something that the coaches and the management of LPL have said is an issue, is that they feel that they face each other almost too frequently, which you're going to go, that's weird because they only face each other twice per season, right?
Yeah.
Because they face each other kind of too close together that they don't want to, within their scrim environment, give away too much to their opponents, so they won't scrim these teams as seriously just because they will think, okay, we're going to face them in a couple weeks. We don't want to give away our strategy. Whereas in the LSPL environment, you only face each other once. So you can, in that sense, take scrims more seriously or play more seriously, because if you've already faced this one team in the first week of LSPL, you still have 10 weeks of time where you can just like practice really hard against that team you've already faced and just like dominate the rest of the scene. The other thing with LSPL though is that EDG did say that their LSPL scrim partners took the game very seriously against them because they wanted to be able to prove that they could beat EDG. They wanted to be able to prove that they could win. I'm not so sure that LSPL teams against LSPL teams would always take their scrims that seriously in that case. They might have seen EDG as like, oh, this big up-and-coming team with all this talent on it. We want to kick them into the ground. We want to kick their teeth in. But I don't necessarily think that they feel that way against their LSPL scrim partners. And I will say that also the surrender culture, I think, plays a big part in the difference between LSPL and LPL. Because I think we sort of have seen the surrender culture in LPL die down a little bit, and the big name tournaments in China die down a little bit. But it used to be much more frequent in LPL, right? We used to see surrenders like at least one surrender a week. We don't really see it that much in LPL at all, and I still think in LSPL we see a lot more surrenders, and that's again what makes them avoid learning some of these late game strategies. They just snowball ahead and the other team gives up, right? So I think that plays a big part in it too.
Yeah.
We did see a surrender in the playoffs, though.
Yeah, we saw one series
OMG versus
in the
EDG.
playoffs. Yeah. But much fewer surrenders overall than we saw even in the spring split. So
okay, so Gamcy we've identified as kind of like let's call them the grandpas of LSPL because they're really slow, but you know they have this wise knowledge. They can think ahead. You can see that something's turning in there, but it's now about getting Grandpa to click and to do his thing. Then we have World League Academy, who we all expected to get in. Drexen's like, no, I had to cast that game, Drexen. They don't do anything. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in China. They just they lane super passive. They didn't even build like tiers. It wasn't like they were stacking like 3 tiers and just gonna come out into late game. They were just waiting. Vici Gaming. Let's talk a little bit about them, especially the rumors around Vici Gaming, because that's all hitting Reddit like, oh, Vici Gaming, the whole roster, not the whole roster, but pieces are getting benched. It's going to be, these Korean superstars coming in on Vici Gaming. to take their spots. We're gonna have Dandy in the LPL, Imp in the LPL. Tell me, are the rumors true, Kelsey?
The Dandy Mata thing I've heard happening for a while.
I think Dandy's been on every single LPL team.
Yeah, he's on.
I know he's just like rotating. I feel like he's like not even in Korea. He's not even in China. He's just trolling from Korea, just like making orgs say shit. Yeah, that'd be great.
Let's follow the Dandy rumors. It started out that he and Pawn were supposed to join IG. That was the first one, right? And then we had
IG Flame. I think was the first one.
Well, I'm talking about the Dandy rumors. So Dandy and Pawn were supposed to join IG. It's been 4 of them, I think. I forget what was the second team that
LGD,
I think.
IG.
Well, he was supposed to join Wii and LGD also, but
I think it was IG, LGD, Wii, and then
okay, so
VG.
it is 4 teams. He was supposed to join, and then he was supposed to join LGD, so LGD Imp, LGD Dandy, and then there was a brief period of time where I think people got Dandy and Dade mixed up, actually. And he was supposed to join World Elite, and then it came out that he'll be on Vici Gaming. So, but I think it will be Dandy and Mata on Vici Gaming. Supposedly, the front runner right there is Vasily. Though I guess Xiao Xiao came out
that is
today
weird to
and
me
said
too.
that
Yeah.
70%. There's a 70% chance Vasily will actually join World Elite, and it's like, okay, the last time you said there was a 70% chance an AD carry was going to join a team, Deft was supposed to join OMG. So
He's probably just really
job,
unlucky,
guy.
and like he gets confirmation, and they just like change it last minute, it's, like just to fuck him over.
and the thing is that I feel like everyone is watching the Chinese scene. Like they're watching Richard Lewis report, and they're watching William Turton report. They're watching Xiao Xiao try to make these claims. They're watching Inside Chinese Law. They're watching all these other people, and they're saying, "Wow, you guys are just like tabloid journalism right now." And this is what we're starting to understand why tabloid journalism is like the thing in China, right? Where you can't really believe the news sites. And everyone's like, yeah, this for sure is going to happen because it is for sure going to happen. And then someone else buys them for more money. So, and they don't sign the contract. So it's just, I mean, he's actually there. It's very likely that at one point he was going to join each of those teams. But
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's ever actually confirmed. Like, really.
exactly.
Theory crafting. Here we go. I got excited for that. Okay, so let's say
You need like a massive graphic.
I know, like it like comes in the explosion. No, Dandy and Mata and Vasily join Vici Gaming. Okay, so let's hypothetically speaking, who are the other 2 pieces to that? Then are they keeping the Vici Gaming roster?
Well, someone said that. Okay, and I actually have a few details on the cool situation.
Let's just throw going on that too. And let's put cool in mid. It's going Dandy cool.
There's actually no basis for the going thing, but they're apparently Vici Gaming is bidding on cool. So.
Okay, so who's their top laner?
But V is actually really good. V is on Vici Gaming right now.
So let's assume it's V.
Wait. Isn't it carry on Vici Gaming?
I don't like. It's all a blur. Like last week happened.
It's all a blur.
I slept like two hours a night. It was awful.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the point that I want to get to. 2 Koreans, 3 Chinese.
Yeah.
We have seen this. Like we experienced the Starhorn Royal Club. Like most of the Western audience, they barely caught up to that on the end. They're like, "Damn, this Starhorn Royal Club team, you know, they're mid and they're top, not very good, but they're doing so well. The communication doesn't seem to be like an issue, or at least, I mean, obviously, Uzi carrying people to the finals again, but." There was a point that a lot of Western fans don't realize where Starhorn Royal Club was like an awful team for a very long time. Just Insect didn't perform very well, Zero wasn't performing very well, Uzi was performing very poorly, especially to the expectations and the standards that he's shown himself at Worlds. So here, I'm going to ask you guys, people are saying Dream Team, Dandy, Mata, 3 Chinese players, Vasily, include that? Is that a Dream Team? Is that team going to go anywhere?
Well, firstly, no.
only person on that roster who is always performing.
Yeah, I don't think
Anyway, go ahead.
I don't think it's a dream team, but I also think that like yeah, obviously there's going to be communication issues and there's going to be a ramp up period for these teams that have hybridization, which the Chinese and Korean teams. But I also think that was kind of amplified with Starhorn, just because I think any team that takes on Insec is going to have even more growing team pains than any other team, because like he will only
Shots
play that
fired.
one. No, seriously, he will only play that one style, and the other team just has to work around. He's just like deal with it. Just deal with it, bitches. Like, seriously, because that's how he plays. And, yeah, in the beginning of LPL, he was just suiciding repeatedly until the team worked around it and, like, formed a strategy that would actually work with going ham with Insec. Like, he will not change. So, yeah, I mean, there's going to be these growing pains with other teams, but I don't think it's going to be to the same extent as Starhorn Rail Club just because they had to deal with Insec's inclusion.
Well, let's identify then Mata and Dandy's playstyle. I would say that, yes, these are probably... Dandy is in competition for possibly the best jungler in the world, probably with Kakao. Mata, hands down, one of the best supports, if not the best support in the world, as well as one of the best shot callers. Okay, shot caller support, now shot calling, you know what I'm saying? Like, Korean, the language barrier, would he continue to be the shot caller for Vici Gaming? Would that even work? Would he be able to, I don't know his, I heard that when Samsung White faced an Orianna, that backstage, if you were standing behind stage on OGN, you would constantly hear Mata screaming, spread out, spread out, spread out, because of the Orianna shockwave. So, like, I can't say what his communication style is, because I've never been on comms with him, and I bet there's few reports of, like, that we could even get to make and build a case for that, but... Yeah. Could you continue to do that? Isn't that a factor that's going to hurt him? Are we then relying totally on Mata's mechanical ability? And if we take away Dandy and Mata's communication, because Samsung White was a very cohesive team in their communication and very intelligent team, like, if we take away those elements, are they still the amazing players?
I think, in the case of Dandy and Mata, the fact that they're both on a team together again works a lot in their favor, because if you watched Samsung White and their warding, like, most of it was taken care of by Dandy and Mata in the jungle. So they would coordinate together and put the wards down together, and sure, the rest of the team bought wards, like, I'm not saying that, but they definitely took care of most of the strategy, and then by setting up these ward placements, it's almost like a sign that they can put up for their Chinese players, even if they don't speak the same language, that this is where we're going next. Like, that kind of warding strategy, I think, worked well for Samsung White, and you don't even necessarily have to communicate for it to carry over. Obviously, communication is important, but the other thing is that I think the way Samsung White worked a lot, though, is they actually, both bottom lane and jungle, relied a lot on top lane. And by that I mean that usually, very often, Dandy did go top first, just to get, so that top lane would always have an advantage when it came down to any other lane trades. Yeah, so if Looper got first blood, then, like, immediately you would see Mata and Imp go ham in their lane. Like, they would play almost kind of reserved for the first 5 minutes until Looper would get some kind of advantage in top lane, and then they could go really ham. So I'm wondering if, like, that will... And, of course, White had many different strategies, but I think that's a very familiar, very comfortable strategy for them, and I'm curious to see if they'll be able to execute it the same way with a Chinese top laner.
I also think that even though they do have, like, two Korean players, like, at least that the communication between those two is very crucial. Like, it's a very crucial bond. So, I mean, like, having jungle support synergy, like, I mean, shot calling is very important for those two roles specifically.
Pull your mic out of your face, Kelsey.
Yeah, so that's, like, a really big deal, because they're still going to have that synergy between themselves, and also Dandy is, like, the opposite of Insec in terms of, like, junglers that you can keep under control. Like, Dandy's more controlled, and he's very calculated. He knows exactly, like, there's a reason he's called, like, the counter gank king and stuff like that, so it's, like, a kind of an opposite situation. So, yeah, while it might not be, like, a perfect, like, Worlds winning team, you look at, like, the disadvantages that Starhorn Rail Club had to deal with to get to finals in Worlds, like, then I definitely think that other teams can kind of have the same thing going for them, but then again... I don't know. I mean, the thing is like, Starhorn Rail Club also had Uzi showing up really, really well at Worlds, and, like, I don't think Vasily showed up well at Worlds, so that's also a point to think about, I think.
Like, real quick to clarify, I think on a previous show that I didn't think Dandy would do so well on a team with Chinese players. That was when I thought it would be either with Pawn or Imp, but the fact that he's with Mata, I think, is very important.
Yeah.
Also, the junglers. Also, I do want to say that Dandy has an even more advantage, I think, in the new season, just because it's a lot more of like a cerebral role. Like, there's so much more to think about in the jungle this season, and like, you know, he's
It's
really
far more punishing of efficiency.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a factor as well.
Pretty good because the current Vici roster relied heavily on Amy pressuring the map pretty much at all moments of the game, I felt like. And he was their how do I put it? Wow, I can't even think of it. But he was basically, he was their playmaker, their structure, he was their carry, he was the team. And so I felt like, of course, in the new season, I don't think it's going to basically favor him all too well, though I still think he's going to be a great acquisition to any team that really wants a jungler. Like, he's really great.
Do you think it's unfair at all that we have these rosters that qualify for the LPL, and they'll probably, I'm assuming a fair majority of these players will probably stay on the team's bench, and obviously like have a place to stream or set up their brand or, you know, what have you, but the fact of the matter is you had two teams now, so Vici Gaming and Energy Pacemaker carries. Carries, if they made it into the LPL, supposedly Kakao and Rookie were going to be the replacements for that team, but you had, you know, Super Cat down there in the support role, like, fighting for his right to possibly have his team replaced, or...
Yeah. I felt really sad for EP carries, because I felt like EP carries did so damn well under the circumstances and under the... basically how we felt they were going to perform, or how anyone felt they were going to perform. It just felt like they were just going to lose under any circumstances. But you know what? Actually, if they were on Group B, you never know. Like, it felt like it just wasn't in their favor. And then you have EP carries. I mean, no. Then you have Vici Gaming. Yeah, you had Vici Gaming that their players are going to get replaced, or at least a good portion. Amy is the biggest tragedy because
Amy is really good.
He's so damn good. And then the rest, I don't know, Bobo and the bot lane.
So mean to Bobo.
Wow.
He has a good name. That's about it.
So, like, the thing about EP carries is, to my understanding, what's really interesting about their performance is that it was pretty much predetermined before this happened that they were going to disband anyway. So that roster kind of just came together for this last hurrah to, like, play to get Kakao and Rookie into the LPL. And then they just kind of collapsed on themselves. So, I don't know. It's really interesting to think about.
Do you think that this is a problem? Like honestly, just asking you guys, do you think that this is fair? Do you think that this is a problem in League of Legends? Should this have gone through? Should there be, you know, roster locks, or should the season of roster swaps be more controlled? I mean, we're seeing in China that it can almost be used as like a study of, you know, salary caps and what happens when you don't have caps on the money that people are making, or contract caps, or competing stream salaries for organization salaries, roster locks. I mean, are these all issues of a much larger problem that need to be addressed, or is this fine? Can we just let this shit work itself out? Does it not really matter in the long run?
That's kind of like, that's a hard question to answer, because I think that on one end, yes, it really does suck, but on the other end, like, when you're doing this stuff, you understand the rules, like, you sign all this stuff before you participate in that league, and you are fully...
Do they?
You fully... I don't know, actually. That's what I'm assuming. That's what I'm assuming, but you're, like... When you join this kind of stuff, you fully understand that you're susceptible to this kind of, like, volatile nature or whatever. But, like, the reason why I bring that up, because, like, as a general statement of, like, everyone, not just China, because, like, yeah, I know China has, like, a lot of underage players, so I'm sure there's shady shit going on, big surprise. But, I mean, this kind of thing still happened to, like, I forgot what it was, the Complexity roster before their Complexity. Like, when they were like, all right, guys, we have a seat against, like, Velocity, right? And then just Evil Geniuses buys them up and, like, screws them out of an LCS split. Like, that kind of thing happened, too, in North America. It's just in China it's a lot more prevalent. And, like, it's really hard to say without, like, knowing, like, the obligations that are, like, that they're required to undergo and stuff before they sign up for the league. I think it is, like, sort of a problem. If anything, like, I don't think the act of doing it is a problem. I think of, like the timing window in which it's allowed is a problem. So maybe if they have, like, some kind of thing where, like, if you're with this split, you have to devote, like, you can only, like, you know, swap out one person before the end of this, like, split or qualifier or something like that. Like, maybe that would be a bit more reasonable. I don't know. I don't know, though.
The thing is, though...
Is Lace a union? A player union?
No, it's like
controlling, though, of the...
it's an organization for pretty much that implements rules and kind of controls whether or not those rules are and enforces the rules. And most of these rules are it's comprised of pretty much people who head organizations. So people like King for World Elite, things like that. So it is
the people who own the teams have seats and ears to the organization that runs and punishes the teams in the league.
Yeah.
Huh.
But it's
That's
kind of like it's really weird.
It doesn't sound corrupt at all.
It works in some ways, but definitely doesn't work in others. It works in some ways because you don't want another organization to get this like unfair advantage that you don't have. But in some ways, because there is also a president of Lace,
they can just have a third party that doesn't have any sort of
he has like an advantage. But the other thing is, of course, that there are ways in which it helps the players, but there are definitely ways in which it doesn't help the players, and I'm sure that you can think of a lot of examples of both. Yeah, so it's kind of questionable in many situations. But the main issue, of course, is for the poaching thing, right? The reason it was kind of almost implemented into the league part, because Ace itself exists for Dota and other esport titles, I'm sure. But
it's like Chinese
Lace,
Kespa.
yeah, Lace is for League of Legends. That's why they have the L. And so one of the main driving forces for Lace was when Royal Club's owner, Tianxi, tried to buy PDD for a certain amount of money, and then Wang Sikong, who owns the Invictus Gaming, turned around and said, okay, we'll just buy Uzi. But so that they implemented these transfer season rules and these poaching rules. So what's actually happening right now is all within the transfer season. So like the window time period pretty much started at the end of Worlds and ends December 5th. So all the stuff that's happening right now is just within the quote-unquote transfer season. So, I mean, you can argue that these players kind of got screwed over, but also because there's this definite time window in which transfers are okay.
Which people can be screwed over?
Yeah, I mean, this is how contracts work. The contracts were created, like, around this transfer season. So it's, like, within their contracts, like, they technically signed these contracts. Of course, another really big argument is that, again, these players are super young. Like, that was one of the biggest arguments in STYZ's case. Like, we remember STYZ's case when he was essentially bribed by ACFun to try to get out of his contract with LGD. Mm-hmm. And so he didn't act motivated. He tried to avoid, like, playing. Like, he kind of complained all the time and tried to get LGD to kick him, pretty much was his motivation. So that he could go join ACFun for more money. And instead, they just took it to Lace. And Lace said, okay, this guy is banned for a year, and we're going to fine ACFun $60,000. Which it's really funny that, like, $60,000 right back then wasn't enough to sink ACFun or to, like, hurt them a lot. Right now, it would probably be considered laughable. And that's one of the problems Lace has with trying to enforce anything, is just because their fines are too small or not effective. So I wouldn't be surprised if December 5th isn't the last time we see some of these transfers either. But, yeah.
Okay. In China, and again, like, I don't have any notes, so we're just going with the flow here, following conversation. In China, we have Lace for League of Legends. You've made the comparison for OGN, it's Kespa. For LCS and EU, it's Riot.
Yep.
What do you guys think? I mean, we've kind of talked about the pros and the cons of both, but, like, now having all three organizations together, like, what would be the ideal if you could create a league moderator? Would it be Riot? Would it be Kespa? Yeah. Would it be Lace? Would you combine, like, what elements would you take of all? Because this is I personally feel that this is a serious problem. These are young kids, like 14, 15, 16 years old. You know, give them a contract, say,
until they get to Worlds,
money.
then they're 18.
And then they're 18 for sure.
Yeah,
Man,
like,
I don't know.
supposedly regular. Like, this was, again, the thing that was just, like, mind-blowing when someone told me that supposedly throughout the year there are regular checks to make sure that LPL players are 17. I was just like, wow.
Sure.
That's not even... Okay. But...
I mean, I personally am an advocate for a player union. I think that a veteran player probably needs to step forward. I would suggest like Snoopy, like someone who's like, been around the scene, is a very respectable player, nice guy, very intelligent, would step forward and help create a player union to make sure that situations like Coast, situations like Vici Gaming, situations like LGD and ACFUN don't happen. But I don't know if that's even possible in the organization's hands. Like, Lace could be doing an amazing job, and that could be supposedly the best that we have. But you said, like, the fines are laughable, and it's there to pretty much just be a babysitter to Richmond throwing tantrums.
And I don't know how much Vici Gaming knew about the Dandy Mata thing, like how much the players themselves, but the fact that I knew before the promotion tournament, the expansion tournament, makes me think that maybe there was some knowledge that they would get replaced or that they would be moved to a different roster, that they wouldn't actually get to play in LPL.
You're not on, like, the highest chain of secrecy? Like, you're not, like, Kelsey Moser,
No,
like, I know
I'm
everything
really...
before it's gonna happen, and...
Like, I have like, Nilu's sources, and that's about it.
What are Nilu's sources?
Nilu's mystical sources.
Sources tell me.
Follow Matt.
I told him
Nilu
that
sources.
I told him on Twitter that most people grow out of imaginary friends, but,
Whoa. No, okay, but Riot, Kespa, Lace.
I'm thinking Kespa, because isn't there rules that if you lose 3 players of a squad, you have to requalify?
Is that how they... Because we've had so many ninjas in pajamas, lemon dog situation, EG situations of teams buying spots or rosters having the spots and then the organization doesn't have it, and flip a coin, who's going into the LCS, who's going into LPL.
I'm also much more jaded by Kespa, and I kind of feel like there has to be some kind of collusion going on. Like, there's a reason why the salaries that they pay are so low. And that's, like, kind of my suspicion on
You
Kespa.
think all the organizations are all getting together and be like, I'm never going to pay anyone over, $2?
There's evidence that this has happened in the past. You see a lot of, like, there's a reason why there's anti-collusion, antitrust laws almost everywhere, because those sorts of things happen. And so that would be, like, this is my paranoid conspiracy theory about Kespa. In terms of... But I again, like, I think that a third-party type... Because Kespa still has the team organizations involved, right? Kespa is pretty much the organizations. It's like the same situation as Lace. So I think that you would need a group like that, and you would need... and then of course, there's, like, Tencent, LPL. That's the third branch that controls the league. Mm-hmm. And then you'd need, like, a player union type situation.
Yeah,
so.
Because now that I think about it, each league has their own kind of, like, benefits, and at the same time problems, because Kespa has definitely that conflict of interest when it comes to which teams are in, which teams kind of, like, it just feels like... And then you'll have Riot, which it doesn't have that conflict of interest or that same issue. Though probably, I don't know. Actually, they
have
difficult.
Different conflict of interest.
Yeah,
for
they
sure.
do.
And
yeah.
that they're trying to promote their own game as well.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
I would say that there's, like, I think that right now in terms of North America, Europe, and China, we are getting some of these players who are making a lot of money when they retire, and they do have this money, so they have some sort of resource for almost, like, having an authority. I don't know how much relative to, obviously we're talking about giant corporations here and giant billionaires, but just the fact that they might have a little bit of clout, a little bit of power in the scene to say something is, like, we're starting to get to the point where that's relevant, and so I think it is a good idea or a good concept.
I just think that, I mean, with all of the rumors of players being lured, like that, or there was a whole scandal supposedly around Hero, the former World Elite manager, of, like, luring Korean players over there with, false hope, false contracts, things aren't going through, money's being talked about. Like, in mainstream sports, let's even go to, like, the collegiate level in, like, mainstream sports. Like, if a college is courting a player and you know, there's an organization that throws down rules on that and controls that. And the fact that League or esports, I don't even know if esports in general has. I haven't looked closely enough at CS:GO or Dota 2, although CS:GO was dealing with its own branch of problems right now. But I mean, do you think that something like that is needed? And should that even be controlled?
I think the agent thing is something that I'm definitely more concerned about than, like, for example, when we're talking about players being swapped out for the Koreans, and I think that's a problem, and I can almost see the organizations themselves getting burned for it, because they probably, I don't see them winning Worlds. Like, that's the goal here. They want to win Worlds, and I don't see them winning Worlds, and I think that that's, like, the best way to kind of punch them in the gut, to show them that winning Worlds isn't about the players, it's about the infrastructure, so they'll start, like, copying infrastructure instead of just importing the talent.
Why do you think Worlds is the utmost highest priority? Do you think it's the cash prize?
I think it's because, I mean, no, it's not just, it's obviously not just the cash prize because of, like, the streaming revenue, that's the potential and stuff that's going out and about, but, like, I mean, it's like publicity, too. I mean, it's free advertising, essentially. Well, not free, because obviously it's invested into the team, but I do think it does have a bit to do with exposure to the brand and stuff, because, like, as soon as we get a Worlds, like, the amount of mainstream press that, like, just all of a sudden jumps on the League esports bandwagon is massive, and I think that's pretty big too. I mean, this is just my guess. I'm not, like, a business expert or anything, but that's what makes sense to me on why Worlds is, like, super high priority.
I think it's because these are, like, young guys with a lot of money, and this is, like, their goal. They can say that they have the best team, and they made the best team. And
yeah, that could be it too. Rich kids with expensive toys, just like, yeah, mine's the best.
But we've made the argument before that, you know, like, any season of OG and Champions has a higher caliber of competition than a world championship.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
There's more elite teams there. So shouldn't, like, if it was to be the best, which is why the marketing standpoint totally makes sense now, because obviously, like, that's the big thing. Like, if it's, I'm going to have the best team in the world, wouldn't you be like, I'm going to go to OG, and I'm going to qualify for OG, and I'm going to be... Okay,
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly, because there's a difference between what, like, shows is the best and what's actually the best out there. Like, because everything points you to say that the world champion is the best team in the world, and the best teams at Worlds are the best teams in the world, because this is how it's advertised. Like, it doesn't matter if, like, 7 OGN teams are better than the next best team or something like that. It's just how it's marketed.
Yeah.
And it's also very nationalistic, right?
Yeah.
You can say, like, you send your team to fight the other teams in part of the other countries, and so you can say that not just your team, but your team representing your country, your region of esports is the best. Whereas if you just send your Chinese team to Korea, then, like, you don't have a bunch of people around the world watching you be the best in the world, right? You just have, like, the Koreans and some of the diehard Chinese fans watching you be the best in Korea, right? So, whereas at Worlds, like, all the fans are watching all their teams from all their regions, and they're seeing, like, you be the best region.
It's a larger message. TLDR publicity. Seriously, that's what it comes down to, I think.
Do you think that without Worlds, we would be able to objectively make a statement like Champions has more competitive caliber than a world championship?
Well,
that's because you have to have, like, a baseline, yeah. So you would have to have an international tournament to say, okay, the Koreans are this much.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. That would depend. That depends on so many things. Like, that would depend on if, like, you know, League of Legends was more grassroots, because then we'd be having way more international tournaments by now, probably. But, like, if you just, like, cut out Worlds, there'd still be, like, IEM and stuff like that. But a lot of the IEMs are also, like, invitationals. Not so much have, like, a qualification system to a lot of their like, regional events, so that's also kind of a hard thing to determine. So it would have to have, like, inclusive things, like, from like a lot of more grassroots games like Dota and CS:GO and StarCraft have, like, with the inclusion of DreamHack and stuff like that to determine this kind of stuff. So if you just, like, chop out Worlds with the current infrastructure now, yeah, it'd be kind of hard to make that claim, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, because then it would just be like hearsay. It'd be like, well, I just think Korea's better. I just think China's better.
But so shouldn't the goal be switched of, I'm not going to be the best team in the world, I'm going to be the most famous team because I won the world championship?
Maybe that is their goal, but that they can reach that famous goal by having the title of the world championship.
You would have to go through the best team in the world to get there, because obviously for sure they're going to be at that tournament.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
Well,
I think, yeah, you can definitely say that the best team will be at Worlds,
Although
only just through
in the
qualifications.
past,
Although it is
wasn't there that big argument that formally, like, one of the best teams in the world didn't qualify to Worlds just because of the structure of OGN's.
Yeah, like Bullets was.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Well, I mean, it's still kind of a
But-
problem because Shield got in over SKT and KT Arrows, but I mean that's.
That's
I
the
don't
thing.
think necessarily KT Arrows or SK Telecom would have done any better.
Probably not, but like the thing is like it's also narrative. It's like, okay, one of them was the world champion before, and then one of them did win OGN. And for the team that won the most recent OGN not to be at Worlds over like Shield, who didn't do too well in playoffs, is kind of like, I don't know. But I mean, it was regionals, and that's just how they do it, I guess.
It just feels like you'll always, in my opinion anyways, that you'll always see the best team at Worlds, only through the qualifications. Because once you see the end of qualifiers in Korea, that you're like, okay, that makes sense. Like in Season 2, you saw Taipei Assassins. Okay, just kidding. But no, you saw Azubu Frost was by far the best team, and of course they went through circuit points. And then Season 3, you saw SKT, and I felt like at every Worlds you always saw the best team coming through, be it through the gauntlet matches in Korea, or just through powerhousing through circuit points. So I don't think we'll find that situation in which the best team in the world doesn't get to Worlds. Like,
until we do.
Yeah, I don't think
KT rolls to Arrows is probably the closest you can get to that one.
See, I don't think the problem is
KT
really not
Bullets.
seeing the best.
But KT
gets screwed to
better,
Worlds.
so.
We can disagree on that.
Just like
But,
barely, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but-
the thing, though.
But like, I don't think anybody's really arguing at the fact that the best team will be to Worlds. It's just like the best 3 or best 4, best 5, best 6, like something like that. Like,
No, but I'm saying like SK Telecom was almost like just better on that day, and then like that was
that's
enough.
true.
oh yeah,
So the question is like, how different would it be if KT Bullets had gone? Like, would they have come back and had this amazing run through champions? Like, this is like the
probably
kind of
would have,
interesting
actually.
question.
Because
I just think
SKT
it's
almost lost
interesting.
to
Anyway,
a 9 chain, so
trying to
okay.
There's so many different. I know what we're talking about. That there's so many different like mentalities going through. The fact that all these teams are supposedly putting together these rosters to say, I want to go to the world championship. I want to be the best team in the world. But when you objectively, like I just asked you, like, what has a higher caliber of competition? Competing in OGN or a world championship. Like, what's going to be weighed more? Like, my team won a world championship, or my team won X amount of OGN finals. Just curious. I mean, we've had rumors going around on the internet, like all these Korean players going to North America, or all the imports coming through. Is it an easier way into Worlds? Take LMQ, go to North America, stomp through North America, qualify for Worlds easier than staying at home in your own region. Or your Korean players, China is paying you big money. I mean, Insect went to the World Finals. He was there and Kakao was not. So, I mean, is there some proof to this? Like, go to the easier region, and do you think that this is a factor in it, or is this all just about, like, the money?
well, I mean, it's kind of like you can't really say it's one or the other, because it's kind of inadvertently money by getting them to Worlds easier, because then you're getting a recognition out there easier, in a sense. And then also, like, I also feel like it's also kind of necessary in a sense, because otherwise, like, regions like North America would be so far behind it wouldn't even be funny, because they wouldn't have the competition to step up to. So.
And with some exceptions, like some really, really, really popular, really talented Chinese players, the players who are the players who are getting the big contracts, right? The players who won Worlds. Hey.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of they're both the same thing. It's about Worlds. It's about recognition. It's about the money, because you can't. They're both too like linked to separate them.
China can't buy a championship, but we can buy champions.
Every
Sign
single
'em, boys.
region.
They
every
almost
single
bought a
region now
championship,
has a
kind
world
of.
champion.
Did it.
Continuing on, we lost our train of thought. Again, this is why we're supposed to do notes, and I think we're supposed to wrap it up too, because it's supposed to be a shorter episode. Our 4 teams. Because that was pretty much what happened. It was LPL qualifiers and LSPL qualifiers. Do you guys
And a
want
bunch
to talk
of
about
rumors littered everywhere, but yeah.
Rumor
there's
mills everywhere.
rumors.
Do you guys want to? We talked a little bit about EDGF, or EDGF, Edward Gaming Future. Do we want to address any more of the rumors? Is there any other ones, or did we cover?
I want to talk a little bit about. We didn't really talk about Imp or Cool. I don't think that much.
Cool's contract has not been re-signed with OMG, so rumors are circulating that he could be looking at other teams. Obviously, the other teams would have to be very wealthy to afford him. And Imp is supposedly going to LGD in place of XQ.
I'm hyped for that Imp PYL lane, man. But also, I also don't feel like XQ deserves to be on the bench either, so it sucks.
He's the OHQ of China.
Yeah, that's actually the really good comparison.
Okay. I want to say one thing about PYL is that in the Reddit thread for LGD Imp, someone posted that Imp is nothing without Mata. And so that made me get on my little soapbox that PYL is essentially the Mata of China in terms of like all the stuff that he does.
Yeah.
And I have been told that Imp picked LGD specifically because of PYL, and like that makes sense. Because if you want to look at a player that's similar to Mata in China in terms of being a shot caller, being strong mechanically, like controlling what your team does during the game. Like I don't think his vision control is anywhere near Mata's, obviously, but it's just like an interesting comparison to make. The real interesting thing though is Cool. Supposedly the rumor is that Cool's contract has... The bid on Cool's contract is up at like $500,000 right now. But the way it works is once the bidding stops, if OMG can meet that number, they get to keep Cool. But
that's so ridiculous, man.
I was just thinking of this as like an eBay. Like,
yeah,
auction
seriously, that's literally what it is. But for like human beings, it's freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So, but that's the thing. So, like, OMG is kind of like stepping back and waiting to see who is like the king of the mountain, and then they can either decide, okay, we'll meet this, or they can decide to let him go.
We would have totally kept you for 500,000, but 510,000. Sorry, bro. Back to
Yeah.
I think they're more inclined to make that decision to let him go simply because they do have Shi Young in their back pocket.
That is not a back pocket. That is a really deep hole.
There's just,
I don't know.
I think we've talked about the difference between Shi Young and Cool.
I also did hear that there might be a chance that Kakao and Rookie don't end up on the same team. I don't know if that's true, but that's something I read.
Interesting.
Okay, cool. He'd have to go to a wealthy organization then.
Oh yeah, didn't PDD post on his Weibo that he might come back too, or something?
Yeah.
And then, but it might have been a troll.
The Brett Favre of League of Legends.
That like Cool, that Going and Loveling were re-signed for. Supposedly, the amounts that they were re-signed for and that Cool was offered were so large that the OMG organization was surprised that Cool looked for other offers at all. So it's interesting.
It's leveling. He just has.
So they are.
That guy.
So we know that. So we do know that OMG is capable of paying and could potentially is willing to pay whatever that final bid is. So it's interesting.
Okay. And all of this will have to be for sure decided by December 5th because that's when the transfer period is done.
If you don't want to fine or a slap on the wrist.
A countdown clock.
No, but
please don't take my pocket
these,
change.
Supposedly a lot of these announcements should be happening. Like we might even hear the VGS announcement, the Vici Gaming roster announcement coming out tomorrow or Friday. So.
Okay.
There we go.
Anything else, boys? Because we're just about at an hour, and we wanted to keep it short. Again, Thanksgiving special.
Eat a lot of turkey.
No.
We're not doing shoutouts yet. What the heck? Just like jump on with that statement. What the heck?
I'm going to dim sum tomorrow, so there you go.
I'm going to dim sum tomorrow.
Yay.
I'm going to.
I'm so jealous. Woo. I'm gonna eat Subway tomorrow.
Okay, shout out. Grexon, go.
Okay, well, so shout out to my panelists as usual, and I do hope that everyone has a pleasant Thanksgiving if you're an American. If you're not, then you could still use this as an excuse to eat a lot and stuff like that and be lazy. So, not too much else to say other than remember to watch LPL EN broadcasts because the LSPL stuff is interesting, and the LPL is also going to be the most interesting league in spring, I think. Yeah. And I guess as a personal shout out, not really relevant to League, but I'm going to be doing more Smash content. Yeah.
Oh,
Because I'm so addicted now. I'm so addicted to Smash 4, man.
What about Fantasy Star?
Fantasy Star Universe Kelsey, shout out.
There's no potential there.
Shoutouts to my panelists and Raz's second appearance. Shoutouts to Razzleplasm for casting every single night last week.
Oh my gosh.
For at least one shift. He was the guy who was trying to keep me sane in some way, so I didn't kill everyone. But and shoutouts to Frostgrin, of course, who did like a wonderful job on the 3 nights that she casted as well. Yeah, and shoutouts to all the casters who participated in that. That was really great. Trying to fill in for Pyrotechnics was difficult.
Yeah, Pyra.
But luckily, I know some amazing play-by-play casters in the business.
Yay! Yeah, everybody did an awesome job.
Shoutouts.
Alright.
Beat a lot of turkey, guys.
Oh, and please follow On Gamers on Twitter and Facebook.
There you go.
Check out On Gamers for all your esports needs.
Let's see. Jeez.
Come on, Raz, it's not this hard. He's like, do I want to think Mountain Dew or do I want to think
Doritos?
I would like to thank tea for keeping me warm this evening. I wanted to make some tea, but it's alright. But yeah, shout out to Esportspedia, Hubo, Riot. Okay,
Right.
Thank you, Riot. I'm going to do a shout out again. Huge thank you to all of our LPL and casters. And obviously, I want to address the community. You did notice that we weren't able to use the Tournament Realm client if you followed my vlog, not the log or whatever it is that I misspelled it. We are working right now with the resources that we need to get the tournament client up and running. We will know if we are going to be reauthorized for it by the first week of December, I think. So soon, TM. Otherwise,
hopefully we'll have it for Demacia Cup.
Yes.
Cup.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be there for Demacia Cup. LPL will be fine.
Demacia Cup is the real deal, man.
We might get some Koreans in Demacia Cup, guys. Let's
Oh
go.
boy. Otherwise, huge thank you to my panelists, and again, for all of your esports and gaming needs, head over to On Gamers for more content creation.
Woo!